Hello, and welcome to The Art of Being Human. I almost said something else. Welcome to The Art of Being Human. I'm doing a whole segment of human relationships, and I'm talking about abuse and what happens to you when you're abused, because that's going to be affecting your human relationships to a great deal. So we are going into it very specifically because I want to help as many people as I can, and even though I'm not acting as your therapist, I can point you in the right direction in terms of helping yourself and getting help. Because if you've been abused, you're going to have some thoughts and feelings about yourself that are not accurate, and you're going to feel badly about yourself when you don't need to, and you need to recover from that. And so this segment is to help you to recover from things you may be suffering from because of abuse. And on this list, the fears and emotions, we have gone through the guilt, the fear of punishment, the anticipatory fear, and what I want to go into next are what I call the what-if fears. I'm not the only one that uses that term, however. They're really interconnected a lot, but the what-if fears, I can just say this way, it's the easiest way to define it. What happens if? What happens if I fail a test? What happens if I get a bad report from the doctor? What happens if I lose my job? It's related to anticipatory fear because when you are thinking in terms of what if this, what if that, it's related to what happens next. I'm going to anticipate maybe not being able to get enough money to live on, maybe losing my house, maybe losing my car, all of these things. And so actually the what if fears are really anticipatory, but sometimes they're immediate. I'm going to the doctor today, what if the report is bad? I'm going to the dentist tomorrow, what if it hurts? I'm going to be talking to my supervisor, what if I'm fired? All of those things, they're all interconnected, and so we can pile them up kind of together. What if, what if, what if? Now, the way to get out of what if is the fact that you're going to exaggerate the fear. It becomes an anticipatory fear because it's exaggerated. You don't know what's going to happen, so therefore you form in your mind a scenario of what's going to happen, and you're always going to expect the worst, and you're going to build it up, and it's going to become a giant fear. And then by the time you get to the doctor's office, have the meeting with your supervisor or whatever it is you're going through, you're in a very, very high rate of tension. You know, there are some people who have what's called the white coat blood pressure. When they go to the doctor, the blood pressure skyrockets because they're always expecting the worst. He's going to examine me and he's going to find this wrong and he's going to find that wrong. Well, maybe not. But that's what you envision in your brain. Your head is probably the biggest obstacle to your health in a way, because whatever you think of, you actually become so involved with what you think of that that becomes your reality. If I'm driving down and I'm seeing a big truck in front of me, if I'm in my car, maybe my reality is I'm afraid he's going to stop short and I'm going to run into him. Well, let's supposing that's the case. It usually wouldn't be, but let's supposing that's the case. Now I have in my mind insurance forms, a new car, I've injured somebody, there's a lawsuit. You know, a lot of people leave the counseling field because there's so much to lose if they get involved in a lawsuit that they just don't feel safe doing it. Somebody's always suing a doctor. Somebody's always suing a therapist over something. If your mentality is, I can't take any risks because something awful is going to happen as a result of it, you're not going to make a lot of progress in your life. If I started a counseling center, I helped to start 3 counseling centers. One of them was my own that I ran for over 20 years, and the others I became very involved with. One was I was vice president, and I was one of the directors, assistant director of the counseling center, and I got involved in 3 of them. If I was afraid of every little thing happening, we're going to not have enough money to operate, we'll have to close it down. I'm going to get sued for this or that or the other. I'm not going to be able to meet the state requirements. If you think in terms of that, you don't make any progress because you don't take any risks. Because you have to take risks, but at the same time you have to protect yourself. But if you're thinking about, what if this happens? What if I get sued? What if I drive in an accident? What if I ride a horse and I'm thrown off? After a while, it becomes so consuming that you paralyze yourself. The fears become anticipatory because now you expect them to happen. Oh, I'm going to go out for this new job, but I probably will be fired from it. Maybe they won't like me. Maybe I should stay with the old job. At least I know what I've got. At least I know what it is. But I really want this new job because it's opening up, and this is something I've wanted for a long time. My advice is to go for it. If it doesn't work out, you're still a worthwhile person. You're not a failure. But what if it works out right? You'll be just loving the job that you do. Supposing the new job opens up and you're going to have to move. I moved to Tennessee to be a college professor. And the thought was, well, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should stay in New England. And, you think about all of these things. What if you don't make it? What if you fail? What if you're not a good teacher? What if you get fired? You can just paralyze yourself. Well, I went and I had positive expectations, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And so, you don't want to be so tied up with your fears of what if this happens, what if that happens, that you don't make any progress in your life. That doesn't make any sense. Those are the what if fears. The fear of loss of control. A lot of times, if you are filled with anger because you've been abused, you're afraid of losing control and doing something that you wish you hadn't done. What you need to do about that is to get into therapy if you need to. Ask yourself, what control are you going to lose? What's going to happen that makes you lose control? What are the things that you are afraid of? And work those things through. And when you work those things through, then you're not going to be so fearful of losing control. Anger is another thing. If you have been abused, you're going to be angry about it. I was abused. I wasn't. I'm just using myself as an example. I was abused, and so therefore I'm angry at the person who abused me. I'm afraid I'm going to do something to the person that abused me. I don't want to have anything to do with that person who abused me. I decided that I hate them. I decided that I can't forgive them. And so you build up an anger. And what you have to do is work that anger through. Anger has a tendency to pool. You get involved with your anger. You turn it in on yourself because it's not safe to be angry. If you're a child and you're being abused, you may be very angry about the abuse, but you don't dare to express that. Because if you express that, it may lead to more anger, and it may lead to more abuse. So you keep your mouth shut about it. You don't talk to people about it. You just leave it be. The children who talk about what they think is abuse, what they don't like, I suspect are the ones that are not being so abused. A child that's being abused tends to be silent about it. They tend not to talk about it because they're afraid of saying anything that's going to be incurring more abuse. A woman who is abused by her husband, they go out on the town and she's laughing and she's joking and she's talking, and you would never know that there was any abuse there by her behavior. There is, but she's hiding it. She's hiding it because she does not want to get anyone thinking that she may be abused and may be looking into the situation for her safety, because it's going to make her husband mad and he's going to abuse her even more. So the rule of thumb is act like everything is all right even if it isn't. Act as if you're not being abused even if you are. So people cannot see it. Keep the secret. Why is it that a husband doesn't want a wife to talk to her friends, to have friends over, for her to go away on vacation, to visit her parents, or whatever? Because she may say something about the abuse, and then they'll be on to him. And he wants to keep it secret because things could happen. You know, he might be arrested for abuse. He might lose his job if he's abused. Some people, like in the service, I think a person who's in the military can lose their position in the military if it's known that they are abusing their wives. So he wants to keep this secret. And so she has to be home all the time, not go out to see her friends, not have friends in, not to go to the movies with the people that she's friends with at work and all of that, so that she can keep the secret, so he can make sure that she keeps the secret of abuse, so that makes him safer. He's not so apt to lose his job, but at the same time, she's suffering and she's not getting help for it. But that anger that she feels is going to be turned into herself, and it's going to become depression. Anger, hidden anger, anger that has been turned into yourself, is probably the most common cause of depression. There are different types of depression. We'll be getting into that. Exogenous depression, endogenous depression. There are different types of depression, but one cause of depression, which I think is really significant, is the fact of abuse and anger turned inward, so that the person does not feel the anger, will not acknowledge the anger, won't talk about it. One of the things that happens in therapy is that you have to start talking about the things that bother you. And it's hard to do that. Therapy is not just a fun conversation. You really need to get work done in order for the healing to proceed. But it's not easy to talk about anger. But once you can voice that, once you can talk about it and let that be known, you're not going to be held prisoner by it. You're not necessarily going to lose control. You're going to let it out. You're going to let it out in such a way that it's expressed in a safe manner, so your therapist knows about it. It doesn't mean you're going to become dangerous. We have to be careful when we're counselors and working with people, because there is such a thing as going into emotions too deep, too fast, too far. And one of the things that stretches the therapy out is the fact that you have to be careful how you do this. It's like you're opening a wound. You're opening a raw wound. How much do you want that raw wound in your face? How much do you want to see of it? Gradually, I always allowed clients to make up their mind. I knew the anger was there. We need to talk about this anger, but we don't have to talk about it all at once. When it's safe to let a little out, we let a little out. Then it becomes safe to let a little more out, and on it goes until we have the spectrum of, oh, this happened to me and I'm very angry about it. But that doesn't mean I have to act on the anger. That means I have to recognize that that anger is there. I have to work with that anger. I have to express it in some way, but in a way that does not hurt another person, even the abuser. And when you can face the abuser and say, this is what you did to me, and this is what I'm upset about, and this is what I'm angry about, when you can actually face the abuser and verbalize it, then that gives you a very great sense of freedom. It's out in the open. It's not being held in as a prisoner in your own system, doing all kinds of harm to your own emotions and your own body. So you let it out, you work with it, and then you have this sense of freedom. And as you're working and you get a sense of your own worth, how worthy you are as a person, what you went through, and congratulating yourself that you've done so well despite the abuse. You haven't done everything maybe that you've wanted to do, but that can come later. Then you can have a sense of freedom. Yes, you were abused. You lived through it. You might be able to help other people who go through it too. So anger is something that has to be worked at. It can't be hidden forever, but it has to be dealt with in a way that's safe, both for you as a person who's getting counseling and the people that have abused you. So you can face them, and they may even admit, I did terrible things to you. They may even apologize. I'm so sorry, I could take it back. I wished I could take it back. And then you can get a resolution of that, and you can get freedom. So that anger is very, very important. The anger and the depression here is a combination. They are combined together. Anger giving depression. When the depression gets to be healed, the anger is let out, observed, dealt with, and then it doesn't have to remain. See, these things don't have to remain. I'm going over the symptoms that you will have, but it doesn't mean those symptoms are going to be there forever. As you work with them, the symptoms will leave. You'll feel good again, the way that you were supposed to begin with. So there's all kinds of hope that you will get better. The fear of emotions, the fear of depression, the fear of anger, that goes along with all of that. You will fear emotions and the fear of abandonment. One of the reasons that a person cannot express anger at the way they're being treated is that if they do that, they may be abandoned by the person who's abusing them. Supposing you're a wife, you have 3 young children. You don't have a job. You can't take care of yourself financially. Your husband is abusing you. You'd love to get away from that abuse. You know it's abuse. But if you make him mad, he will abuse you more. The other thing is, supposing you leave him, where are you going to go? Who's going to take you in? How are you going to take care of yourself? Can you even get a job? And if you get a job, would you have enough money to take care of your 3 small children and yourself? And where would you live? And where would you go? And what would you do? There are a lot of women who stay with abusive husbands because they can't answer those questions. They don't know where they would go. Fortunately, there are people who provide housing for people who are abused so they can get away from their abusive husbands. And most of the time, it's going to be the women that are abused, but sometimes it's going to be the men that are abused. Some women abuse men, but most of the time, it's women being abused by men, and that's why I'm focusing so much on that. So you have to realize that, you know, you fear the emotions, you fear the depression, you fear the abandonment. If he gets mad at you and he's abusing you, supposing he leaves you and abandons you, it's the same thing as you leaving him. How are you going to take care of yourself? If he's not going to take care of you financially, how are you going to live? If you are a child and you're being abused, the fear is my mom and dad are going to get so mad at me for saying anything about it that they are going to put me out of the house. I will have no place to live. I will have no place no person to take care of me. I'm afraid of being abandoned because I know I can't take care of myself. I'm too young, and so therefore what's going to happen to me? I'm going to just have to put up with what they do until I have a chance to leave home. Unfortunately, a lot of children that leave home are children who have been abused, and they run away to a big city and they get involved in all kinds of bad things because they can't take care of themselves, and there's nobody readily available that will take care of them. It leads to all kinds of things. It leads to custody battles. It leads to court cases. So it's horrendous. It really is horrendous. That fear of abandonment keeps people in line so that they don't have the gumption or what they need to step out of a situation that's bad in order for their own safety, in order for their own children's safety. So they have to have courage to leave home if that's what it requires to keep them safe. But the fear of abandonment is so great that people stay in situations that are awful because they can't imagine leaving, because they don't know who's going to take care of them. See, people really don't take care of themselves. We think we're so rational. We think we can do anything we want to do. But personal situations are sometimes so bad that we don't have the power to do what we want to do. A young child or a teenager can't live an normal adult life because they're not there yet. Their development isn't there yet. And so what are they going to do? Put up with what is going on in the house so that they will be taken care of until they have a chance to leave, if they ever have a chance to leave. We have older people who still live in bad situations because they don't feel that they can take care of themselves, and they don't want to leave and test it out because they're afraid they'll fail. Then what are they going to do, live on the street? There are a lot of people who do that. But that's not the best way to live either. So, you really need to get help with this. You may not be able to take care of this alone. You really need to have a professional help you, a professional that can refer you to services that you may need to help take care of you if you're going to be in transition and leaving a place where you feel that you're being abused. Okay. Fear of what other people think. That's also a very, very, very big one. How do other people feel about you? You know what self-concept is? Self-concept is often said it's how you feel about yourself, but that really isn't the total picture. Self-concept is how you feel other people feel about you. That's a bit more complicated. You want people to like you. If people like you, then you feel that you can like yourself. So your whole actions and behavior is based upon letting other people see how good you are so they will like you, and then you will like yourself. So it's not just simply how you feel about yourself, it's how you feel other people feel about you, because we get back what other people think about us. If somebody says you're doing a good job, then I say to myself, yeah, maybe I'm doing a good job. Maybe this is good. So we temper what we do about ourselves for the most part. There are exceptions to the rule. We'll get into that at some point. But mostly we feel we're doing a good job if other people feel we're doing a good job. And it gets to be a little bit more complicated than that. But it's not just how you feel about yourself. It's how you feel other people feel about you. Now, we're getting close on time, so I'm going to stop it here. And we'll continue with this next time. We'll finish this section and go into another section, still working with abuse and what it does to you and how you can help yourself. So please join me next time.